All right, so kind of similar to what we've done the last couple days. So we need to find the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Okay, you'll see this looks a little different because it's not already in the ax squared plus bx plus c, because we need to do this first. So to do that, remember we're going to do our Punnett squares. So I have x and a -2, and then x and a -2. All right, so x and x is x squared, x and -2 is -2x, x and -2 is -2x, then -2 and -2 is a +4. Remember, if I do this correctly, I should be able to combine that. So I get x squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay, except now we need to go back and look. There's a 5 sitting out in front there. So that means I need to multiply everything on the outside by that 5. So now it's 5x squared minus 20x plus 20. Okay, so now my equation pretty much looks like what it did the last couple times we did this. Erase. When we did this before. So it looks like that. So if I do my -b over 2a, once I erase this, so -b over 2a, so I have -20 over 2 times, and my a is 5. So -20 turns out to be a +20. 2 times 5 is 10. So my 2 is my axis of symmetry. Okay, and that's also my x and my vertex. Okay, one nice thing about this lesson is it's a lot easier to find what the y is. You just plug the x in right up here. So instead of plugging in x here and doing 2x squared, or so 2 is x, 2 squared times 5, 20 times 2, you can just plug it at 2 here. So 2 minus 2 is 0. 0 squared is 0. 5 times 0 is 0. So you can figure out that your vertex is at 2 and 0. Okay, kind of the same thing here. So if I make my Punnett square for x plus 8, I get x squared, 8x, 8x, and 64. Okay, so that ends up being x squared, 8x and 8x gives me 16x, and then there's my 64, and then same thing, all this needs to get multiplied because I have that -4 on the outside. So that means I'm left with -4x squared plus 16, not 16 anymore. -4 times 4 is -64. And the -4 times 64 is -256. And then same thing, doing my -b over 2a. So -64 over -4 times 2. That's going to end up giving us a -8. So I just found out my axis of symmetry is -8. And again, that kind of lines up with what we just found out in the graph, that -8 plus 8 is 0. So when I go to plug in -8 here, -8 plus 8 is 0. 0 squared is 0. 0 times -4 is 0. So that means my vertex is -8 and 0. Okay, and then the other part of the lesson, again, is kind of review. Is our stretch, shrink, and then horizontal and vertical translations. So remember the number in front, if it's positive, it's going to be a normal reflect up. If it's negative, it's going to be a reflection over, and it's going to be reflecting down. So reflect up means it looks like a U, reflect down means it looks more like an N. The number in front, remember, if the absolute value of it is bigger than 1, I'll just put 1 plus. That means it's going to be a stretch. If the number in front is, we'll put a 1 minus, a less than 1, so a fraction basically, it's going to be a shrink. Careful on some fractions because they might do like 3 over 2. Well, 3 over 2 is bigger than 1, so that would still be a stretch. Then remember the number inside the parentheses is your horizontal. So that means left or right. Remember this one's kind of weird, it's opposite. So left is positive numbers, right is negative numbers. And then the number outside the parentheses is your up or your down. And this one's normal. Up means positive, down means negative. So if you remember back when we did this was absolute value, I gave you like a couple lines and then you would know how many lines there would be based on the information. Like so for number 9, we would have 2 lines. One for that 3. So that 3 makes it stretch 3. And then one for that plus 2. And since that plus 2 is inside the parentheses, it's going to be left 2. Okay, let's go and look at number 10. That negative sign in front means it's going to be a reflection. So the negative makes it reflect down. Then we got the 1/4. Since it's 1/4, that's going to make it shrink because it's less than 1. We have the -6 inside the parentheses, so that's going to move left or right. Since it's a -6, it's going to be right 6 spots. Then lastly, we have the +4 outside the parentheses. Since it's outside the parentheses, that's going to move up or down. And since it's a +4, we're going to move up 4. Okay, so remember, same thing as that absolute value unit. Stretching, shrinking, left and right, up and down. And remember, the book will throw out fancy words. They'll say horizontal and vertical and all that stuff. But as long as you remember the left and right and up and down, you should be good.